What up, Mike? Toronto. VK on the beat. Check. I'm in Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm from Toronto where you wanna get a city love. I'm in Toronto like we wanna get a city love. My city love me back for my city love. I'm in Toronto.
Welcome to episode 1366 of Toronto Mic'd. Proudly brought to you by Great Lakes Brewery, a fiercely independent craft brewery who believes in supporting communities, good times, and brewing amazing beer. Order online for free local home delivery in the GTA. Palma Pasta. Enjoy the taste of fresh, homemade Italian pasta and entrees from Palma Pasta in Mississauga and Oakville. RecycleMyElectronics.ca. Committing to our planet's future means properly recycling our electronics of the past. The Advantaged Investor Podcast from Raymond James Canada. Valuable perspective for Canadian investors who want to remain knowledgeable, informed, and focused on long-term success. Season 5 of Yes, We Are Open, an award-winning podcast hosted by FOTM Al Grego for Maneris and Redley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921. Today, returning to kick out more jams is Blair Packham. Blair, don't say hello. I only have one question for you. Are you ready, Blair Packham, to kick out the jams?
Yeah!
Blair Packham, starting hot. Tell me about the first jam we're kicking out, Alice Cooper.
The line where you're finishing, where you're fading it down. I got a baby's brain and an old man's heart. And I always wanted to say, and they're both in the trunk of my car, you know, because it rhymes.
Right. Locked in the trunk of a car. That's Gordani.
There you go. The reason I love this song, I first heard it when I was 13. And the idea of being 18 seemed remote and seemed like I could hear the angst, and I felt it all.
Right.
When I was, maybe I was 11 or 12, I don't know, but I was young. Whenever the album came out, it was new in my house, and my sister brought it home, and it represented the dark side of life, and the guitars, and the sound of it was so big and dark, and I don't know, adolescent angsty.
That's the perfect age, I think. If you're a teenager and you hear this song, it hits differently. I heard it also. It was like similar age to you, maybe a couple years older than that, when I first heard I'm 18, and of course, many years later. But loved it. Like, I loved it on first listen, and I bought the Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits, which had this on, and I've told the story too many times on Toronto Mic'd, but I still go back to that Alice Cooper Greatest Hits that has this jam on it.
This album, Love It to Death.
So what is this album's name?
It's called Love It to Death.
Oh,
that's what
I
it's
thought you
actually
loved it
called.
to
Yeah,
death. Okay.
I did love it to death. And on the cover, the Alice Cooper Band. This is back when he had a band that was.
Well, the band was called Alice Cooper.
Yeah, the band was called Alice Cooper, and the band were all the same guys that he came up with. Right. This was his original band. And they're all on the cover, and they're playing Gibson SGs, and the bass player's playing an EBO or an EB3, but they're all shaped. They've got the guitars have the like devil's horns, and they just look evil. And Alice is wearing tons of makeup. And again, as a 12 or 13-year-old, I was flipped out. And I read the credits on it as well. I know every song. I picked I'm 18 just because people know it, but I could have picked any song on that record. But credited on piano on one of the songs is Toronto Bob. And I'm like, who's that? And then I realized, one of the co-producers with Garth Richardson is Bob Ezrin.
Right.
And so that's a name that stuck with me. And then when the Jitters got to work with Bob Ezrin in the 80s, I was so thrilled. Not because he had done The Wall for Pink Floyd, not because he had done Switching to Glide for the Kings, but because he'd done Alice Cooper, you know? So it was really heavy in my life.
So from Toronto Bob to Toronto Mike.
There you go. Are you guys related?
He did produce this album. I want to say he did something with Splash and Boots. This is a local like kids entertainment duo, and they've been on Toronto Mike a couple of times. And I feel like there was a Bob Ezrin produced Splash and Boots production.
There might be. He does all kinds of stuff that you know, not to say, I mean, he does all kinds of stuff that doesn't get celebrated. Not to say that he's not successful. Obviously, he's wildly successful, but we hear about the wildly successful stuff and we don't hear about the other stuff.
All right, out of the gates, I love it with some Alice Cooper.
Yeah.
I'm going to give people some context, like what beautiful voice is this? So I would urge everybody who hasn't heard it yet to go back to episode 926. That was in October 2021. So that wasn't, you know, I feel like I've known you a lot longer than 2 years.
It feels like
Doesn't it feel like we've known each other longer?
Yeah.
So
We
2
hugged.
years. We did hug. I said, are you a hugger? Like I asked for consent.
Totally a hugger. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You never know. Like some people don't touch me. Like
No, that's
that's
true.
awkward moments.
Or
It's
who
like, you
get
going for
really
a hug?
uncomfortable. Well, you did
Right.
turn your head away, and I thought, what, have I got bad breath? Like, you know, I wasn't going to kiss you.
I didn't want to find out. Okay. October 2021, episode 926. So this description will give people a little context as to who you are. And I really do think people should go back. I feel like you were super late for that episode.
I was half an hour late.
Which is like unacceptable.
I know.
Not like today. You were 4 minutes late.
I know. Thank you for counting.
You're passive aggressive. Okay. Mike chats with Blair Packham about his years in the Jitters, his time on Q107, Last of the Red Hot Fools, Closer Every Day. Those were a couple of jams you probably heard on the radio. Writing for other people, your time on TV and films. You did a lot of popular like what was the big kids show you did the song for?
Oh, Beyblade.
Beyblade,
Yeah,
that's it.
yeah. But there's a whole bunch of them. Yeah.
Very, very, very prolific.
Yeah.
And we talked for 90 minutes in the backyard, I believe, because that's October 2021.
Yeah, it was great, actually. I thought, wow, what a resourceful guy to set it up outside.
And it was beautiful. And maybe we should just shut this down and get back out there. I think that's where our vibe is here. I did go on Twitter and say, if you have a question for Blair, let me know. This is not your second appearance. So that was the initial Blair Packham, but I won't bore you with the rest because you've been on the show many, many times.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where we get like the bio, the 101 on Blair.
Yeah.
But you're back. And Scooter Dobson, do you know the name Scooter Dobson?
Yeah, I sure do.
Because that sounds like a fake name. But tell me who Scooter Dobson
Well,
is.
his name is Scott, and he's a filmmaker, documentary filmmaker, and a really talented guy, and has said some of the funniest things I've ever heard anybody say. Dear friend of my dear friend Paul Myers, Scott Dobson, Scooter. I never call him Scooter, I have to say, just to be fair.
Yeah, on Twitter he calls himself Scooter, and he basically wrote in to say, I want to come up with some smart-ass questions, but I can't because Blair Packham is one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Oh,
Damn him.
that's so nice. Well, he's a lovely fellow who I don't see often enough. When Paul Myers still lived in Toronto, or when he's visiting, there's a chance I might see Scott. But
Because his brother lives here.
yeah, and it was
Peter.
Peter's a big follower of your show.
Peter's a big follower of the show.
Listener,
And he also reminds me periodically that he is madly in love with Palma pasta. Like, this sounds like an ad, and it kind of is, except this is legit. Like, Peter says, there's nothing like Palma pasta, and I do have a lasagna for you, Blair.
Oh, that's
From
fantastic.
Palma pasta.
I hope that this box sitting in front of me wasn't just a tease.
It's in my freezer.
Yeah.
And another note for those listeners who are interested, I also told Peter that next time Paul is in town, that Peter and Paul should come in the basement here, like both of them together, to just shoot the breeze. So there's an open invitation for Peter Myers to come on when Paul Myers is in town.
Would they have to split the pasta though?
Yeah, well, that's there's a lot there, man. Don't get greedy on me. Don't get greedy. And I'll tell the people on live.torontomike.com that I'm going to restart the live stream, but this will not affect the podcast listeners. Most people are listening to us via podcast. I'm going to race into jam number 2, and then I have some catching up to do with you, Mr. Packham. So thank you for coming here today.
Yeah.
I will say that the pasta doesn't come alone. I do have fresh beer for you from Great Lakes Brewery. It pairs nicely with the Palma pasta.
Yes.
And I was there yesterday. Delicious. So check out Great Lakes Brewery. They're available across this fine province. Let's get to jam number 2.
Get up, get up, get up, get up. Lift your head. Come on, get up out of bed. Today's the day you hold the world with your song. Go now, go now, go now. Help escalate. Angels come down, help with this parade. Do you hear the one whose words will ring? Please let him sing, let him be heard. This is the time. This is the day that we've been waiting for. All the world will stop to watch you shine.
Another great jam called Shine. Tell me about this song and the artist.
The artist is Andy Stochansky, and he's a Toronto boy, Toronto guy, but he lives in Los Angeles. He played drums with Ani DeFranco for years, and then decided he would start writing songs, or maybe he was already writing songs, I'm not sure. But when he did, he wrote these incredible pop songs. And I never use the word pop as an insult, by the way, and I look down on people who do, because I feel like pop is everything other than jazz and classical maybe, and it usually to me indicates that there's a catchy chorus and it's uplifting somehow, even if it's a sad song. And he wrote, unlike many drummers I know, he wrote really catchy melodies and pop songs, and he could sing them and play them, and he decided he was going to be a full-time songwriter and go to Los Angeles, and he's had quite a bit of success there. And he and I were in touch over this Beatles song that came out, because we're both Beatle fans, and it was just so nice to hear from him, and to talk to him and stuff. He's a great guy. I produced 6 national tours of the Bluebird North songwriter show, and Andy was a guest on one of them, and we laughed a lot. It was really good.
And that's rare for you to laugh.
And then I laughed to prove you wrong, yeah. But that tour, it had M. Griner, had Andy Kim.
Okay, wait, slow down. Those are both FOTMs. I want to keep going.
Sherry Elrick. You got to have her on sometime.
I got to get Andy
good.
on. Did he ever come by to hang out in Toronto?
It's funny.
Family here,
Andy
maybe?
and I, Andy Stochansky, Andy and I are talking about, I'm going to San Francisco for a month in February. I'm actually going to house sit for Paul Myers.
For Paul. This is wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I'm going to write songs, and I'm going to hang out, and I'm probably going to drive down to LA, not in Paul's car, Paul, just to be clear.
What does he drive?
He drives a Mini. But I will rent a car because...
Of course he drives a Mini.
Yeah, it's a very cool one. But, I'm probably going to go visit Andy. Yeah.
Wild that you're house sitting for an FOTM, and that's going to be a great month for you, man. You're going to have a great time.
I think so, yeah. Apparently the weather in San Francisco in February is traditionally not great. But, neither is it here in Toronto.
Yeah, we can't throw stones at that one.
Yeah.
It's way low in the mix. Bring that up, Mike.
I know it's true.
Not one of Blair's jams, FYI.
No.
It's all because of you.
But you did mention it.
Yep.
And if I make it through, it's all because of you.
Okay, at this point, we've all heard this song many times, I think. Please tell me your thoughts about the new Beatles. I put the quotation marks, but no one can hear that.
Yeah.
The new Beatles song, Now and Then.
Well, okay, I'm not... I'm a huge Beatles fan. My first record when I was 5 years old was the Beatles. It was called Long Tall Sally. It was a Canadian pressing. And and heavily influenced by the Beatles the rest of my life. I love the Beatles. That's a disclaimer to say that I don't love this yet. I think I might grow to love it, but I gotta say I was sort of underwhelmed. I'm not a fanboy. Like I'm not one of those people who, like, if you have a hero, they can do no wrong. And I'm not one of those people who will, if somebody criticizes something, who will then say, "Oh, I'd like to see you sell 100 million records."
Right.
You know, like, that's completely illogical. It has nothing to do with anything. You like it or you don't. Now, that said, it's growing on me hugely, which is great. And that's actually how a song should go, I think. If you like it instantly, in my experience, if I like something instantly, it fades away. But this is actually growing, and I'm hearing new things in it. Now, have you looked up the AI Beatles version of this as if it was recorded in 1964?
No.
It's well worth it. Okay. Because it sounds like it's from Rubber Soul. Same melody. It's beautiful. It's great.
Okay, so let's break this down for a minute, though. Okay, so we had this, I'm guessing it was like a late 70s recording from John Lennon. Like
yes.
a bad recording, I guess. Because when they put out Free as a Bird, it wasn't good enough. Like they didn't have the technology, the ability to like extract John's vocals and clean it up to a point where it was worthy of a Beatles song.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they have a John thing. That's the base of this thing or whatever. Paul and Ringo are still with us, so they could apply things in 2023 or whatnot. And they had, so tell me, George, they had a piece of, like a guitar work from George from like the mid-90s, maybe?
Well, when they were doing those songs for the anthology in the mid-90s,
right.
They did Free as a Bird and Real Love, and the third song was going to be Now and Then. And so George worked on that with the rest of them, with Ringo and Paul. And then he was the one who apparently called a halt to the sessions. He said, okay, that 2 is enough. And it was because they say it's because the vocal was so terrible sounding, really, and it was because you kept, anytime you turned the vocal up, you'd get the piano as well, and it wasn't a great sounding piano, you know. So you can just imagine Paul with his work ethic, which is maybe a nice way of putting it. You can imagine Paul going, "Come on, Ringo," you know,
one more, Ringo.
Yeah, well, let's put it out. And I can do a better Paul than that, but I'm not going to. The best one I do is Kurt Swinghammer, but anyway.
We'll get to him in a moment.
Okay.
After your next jam.
Yeah. But, so this song, it's funny how it hits me emotionally now. And part of the reason why is because of hearing that, the AI version, because it's AI, it sounds like it's Paul and John and George singing on it, but it's faster. And the lyrics don't sound lame the way they do a little bit. They're a little simple. But if you think of it in the 1965 context, 64 context, they sound, appropriate to that era.
See, I don't have the same, childhood memories of the Beatles, but I was a little underwhelmed like the first time I heard this, but then I listened again. I've talked about it with a couple of previous guests on Toronto Mics where I played it and talked about it. And I don't know when it clicked in, but at some point I realized, I actually really like the song. Like at some point I'm like, it grew on me. Like it was a slow burn like you described, actually, exactly like you described. Now, what's interesting that I've subsequently learned is there's string parts in that were added by, non-Beatles. And one of the women who you can hear doing the string part actually has passed away. So they were talking about how she never even knew, like she didn't, I think it was so top secret that they record string parts and they don't say, "Hey, this is for a new Beatles song." Like it was so top secret. Like she passed away without ever knowing that she was actually going to be on the last Beatles song ever. And I think it was her mother or somebody in her family was just saying what a beautiful, like how excited that would have made her, and what a beautiful gift that is for her that she had a role in the final Beatles song.
Yeah, no kidding. I didn't know that that she'd passed away, but that's very exciting. I did hear on Howard Stern. It was so good. He has imitators, impressionists come on the show,
right?
And they're usually really, really good. And one of them was, allegedly Paul McCartney, and so Howard's asking him about this song, and the technology is so great that we've decided to unearth other recordings that John made. For instance, there's one from his answering machine. We're calling it "Leave a Message at the Beep." and the sad thing is I can kind of imagine Paul going forward with that, like writing a melody for it and so forth. And
I went through a period of my life where I loved Howard Stern. Like I've fallen off I fell off actually when he went to Sirius XM, which was a long time ago now. But I used to listen like crazy, and I remember I think with the evil Dave Letterman, like so they'd have like Dave Letterman, and it would be an impersonator, and it was like I'm like this is so good, and I think in some small like 0.001%, like I figured if I'm gonna have a show. Like it's gonna have that kind of spirit, I suppose, like of the great Howard Stern I used to listen to in the 90s. So.
I think he's really one of the best radio interviewers around. Yourself excluded.
Or of course, I'm like you can't compete with
Notwithstanding,
me.
It's funny how he doesn't always mention that you're a friend of the show to whoever he's talking to. You know, but you're good that way, keeping up with that.
Right. Well, you helped me with that.
Yeah, that's right.
We'll talk about that next.
But but I fell off listening to him on 9/11, 2001 because I was listening.
Yeah.
As I did every morning when I would go down to the kitchen, make a cup of tea, get my breakfast, and I'd had the radio on, and he and Robin were talking about a plane hitting the World Trade Center, but they weren't. They were sort of like, yeah, weird. That's so weird. Remember apparently a plane hit in World War II, and so forth. And then he said, we're getting word. No, this was a jetliner, not a small plane. And then I thought I better turn on CNN. Turned on CNN. Never turned on Howard Stern again.
Really?
Until about 2017.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So what? Why?
Well, he went to Sirius, which of course sort of.
Well,
sealed
but
it,
that was years after 9/11.
Like 9/11, I was kind of obsessed with 9/11 at that time. So I was listening to CBC every day. Didn't listen to Howard
no
Stern.
time for the silliness and the porno stars.
I really thought the world was ending. I thought we were going into World War III. I mean,
Did
in
you
a way,
have a bunker? Like, was there a Blair bunker?
No, but I did go get the oil changed in the car that day. My wife was Arlene was 2 weeks away from giving birth to our son.
Okay.
And so we were freaked, like we're bringing our kid into the world just on the precipice of what I thought was World War III. So we thought we became preppers in a way. We went and got the oil changed in the car, seriously, that day. We're kind of amazed at how everybody else wasn't freaked out, like at the oil change place,
Right.
And then,
business as usual. It's like, do you know what's going on right now?
And then we went and bought a lot of canned goods and some big jugs of water.
That's bunker
and stuff.
adjacent.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Now, I always reminded when you talk about, you had a bun in the oven, so to speak.
Yes.
I also had a bun in the oven on 9/11. So our sons are very similar age, because that was my thought too, is like, what world is James entering? Like, what world have we brought James into? And I definitely remember that feeling on 9/11.
Well, when you think about it, that the fear of World War III or imminent disaster or whatever has been borne out in a way. It's just taken, 22 years to get there. Or not even to get there. We're still on the precipice, but it's the world. I don't remember how innocent I was until on September 10th.
Right.
Because honestly, for me, the world changed. My perception of the world changed after that.
Well, we had a good run there. I feel like, pre 9/11, and I'm a product of mainly the 80s and 90s, but it was there were parts of the world where there, of course, was conflict and war even. But generally speaking, as a Toronto, Ontario, Canada native, that decade, those 2 decades, 80s and 90s that I was coming of age in, were pretty peaceful, really. Like, it was 9/11 sort of was that jolt of like, things are going to change.
I hate to paint myself as an ignoramus, but prior to 9/11, I certainly was. Prior to 9/11, I didn't know anything about Islam. So when on television they started saying it's radical Islamists and so forth, I was like, what are those?
But we did have, because you only have a couple years on me, but I do remember distinctly, reading in depth, conversations with Timothy McVeigh and stuff about the Oklahoma City bombing, and about how that was essentially Christian fundamentalism. Like, I absolutely remember that. When you believe in religion too much, this is sometimes a frightening byproduct. Yeah,
fundamentalism, I think,
of any religion.
Yeah, of any, and maybe of anything. I'm not really sure. Maybe even in music, because I think that life is messy. Humans are messy, and maybe embracing that is the way to go.
All right, you ready for? So that Beatles jam, not yet in your jam kicking repertoire. We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, exactly.
It's growing.
Give me another chance, Mike.
It's easy if you try.
Hear that snare rattle?
Yeah.
That's because it's all live, baby.
Okay, give us the deets.
Warren Heights, near Montreal.
I'm going there Friday morning. I'll be there.
Oh yeah.
People, telephone, they never come through. Honey, 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 I ain't that way. You want a little bit once in a while. Come on and get it. Shouldn't take it so hard. Yeah, shouldn't take it. You shouldn't take it so hard. Take a look around you.
Man.
All right, talk to me.
Okay, well, Keith Richards, first solo record. The album, I like the album a lot, but this song kills me every time, and it's the groove. The groove is so heavy. And every musician I've ever talked to has said, the groove on that thing, I can't remember, can we swear on Trauma?
Yeah, you can swear.
Oh, that groove on that fucking thing,
This isn't CIUT, Blair. You can swear.
I can do. Yeah, exactly. Honestly, every musician I know, even classical musicians, will be like, "Holy moly, that's deep," and I can't. Like a drummer could tell you what it is, but the riff, and it's a song apparently to Mick Jagger, but it could be a relationship song. You shouldn't take it so hard,
Definitely the hit on the album, because
Yeah.
I remember this distinctly too. But I actually struggled to remember a second Keith Richards solo song.
Well, that's the thing. Is like the rest of the record. I can think of a couple, but the rest of the record is okay. It's really good actually. But this to me is killer. There's on YouTube you can find a performance on Saturday Night Live, and you can tell Keith knows how heavy it is. I mean, at the end he's just grinning like a madman. And it's so great. But here's the story. A couple of things. Jeremy Darby, who is a recording studio and a recording studio owner in Toronto and a dear friend of mine, he was one of the assistants on this recording. You got to get him on this show.
Well, and actually, after we wrap the Keith Richards chat, I'm going to talk about some people that you have connected me with who have made an appearance since your last visit to the studio.
Okay.
I have a little list here, but
Jeremy Darby is an Englishman. He came over to North America first with Squeeze, the band Squeeze. He was their monitor man, and then he worked with Elvis Costello in the same capacity. He worked with Lou Reed up until Lou's death, but he owned a studio in Toronto in all this time, and he's recorded some records that he's a great guy. He was an assistant on this Keith Richards thing. He said that they set up at Morin Heights near Montreal, they set up a whole PA system, a sound system in the studio, because Keith didn't want to use headphones. So that's why you hear the snare rattling when the guitar's playing off the top. Keith's playing the rhythm guitar and the snare is rattling because the amp is right there. So the snare drum is like that. To me, that's instantly sounds live. It sounds like a live rock band. They set the PA up and they waited for Keith for 4 days, and all the musicians are getting paid. The studio's getting paid. And Keith didn't show up. So then they tear everything down again, and then they went back and recorded it again. But here's the thing. The drummer is Steve Jordan. Actually, I'm going to correct that in a second, but stand by. Charlie Drayton plays bass in that Keith Richards band. They were called the Expensive Winos, and Steve Jordan played drums. But they were trying to cut this song, trying to cut it, and it just wasn't happening. So Charlie Drayton on bass switches with Steve Jordan on drums. Charlie Drayton plays drums. Steve Jordan plays bass now, which he doesn't normally play. Right. And the song has unbelievable magic.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. And that doesn't happen very often, And they just switched up, and next thing you know, it's like, holy shit, Wow. So anyway.
According to Rolling Stone magazine, that song we just heard is actually their second favorite song on Talk is Cheap. And they prefer... this person who wrote this article prefers Make No Mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Talk is Cheap.
Yeah, no, that's
I just wondered, maybe I'm overlooking some Q107 jam from that album that I just can't, because that was a period of time when I was listening to a lot of Q107. Have you ever heard of Q107, Blair?
You're choking me up, Mike. No, I inhaled too deeply apparently on this.
You were
on this
aghast
spliff.
because you thought, is he
Yeah.
serious? And you're like,
You're
no.
bringing up my past. What a dark past it was. No, yes, Q107. Haven't listened in a long time actually because
Well, it's not the old Q.
yeah, and I want to hear newer songs. I don't want to just hear
Bon
same old
Jovi?
songs. Yeah, and but yeah, I did my time at Q107.
You served your time there.
Yeah.
And they were big Jitters fans at Q107.
Yeah. Oh, I had the most hilarious thing happen recently, but
Tell
it's,
me.
It's really
You can't
a
just
long
say that
story.
and then move on.
Okay,
Like,
well,
I like hilarious things.
Somebody online accused me of being part of a conspiracy with the Q107 Homegrown Contest in 1986, that I knew my band was going to share third place, and which we did. We shared third place. We didn't win, but somehow I was part of the engineering of that, like making sure we didn't win.
This is
But-
right up my alley. Okay?
Yeah.
Continue.
Well, yeah. So this guy online is telling me this. This was in the context of he had accused online. He had accused CBC. He'd accused Trudeau. It was Trudeau's fault that Buffy St. Marie had been investigated.
Wow.
That was his
That's
contention.
your first sign to ignore this person.
Well, the thing is, I didn't though. You know, I mean, I'm sure he's a nice fellow. I don't know that I've ever
that's
met
one
him.
thing. A lot of people
But-
with the Buffy conspiracy theories, we could talk about that later. But
Yeah.
but to be so specific to talk about, because I'm mildly fixated on the 1993 New Music Search contest from CFNY, which was won by Head, and I bring it up a lot because Lowest of the Low were supposed to win, and they
Yeah.
were told by, I think Bookie mentioned to them, you're a shoe in. They don't win. It was $100,000, whatever. But the equivalent at the time with the rival Q107 was this homegrown contest,
Yeah.
and you finished third. For some reason, I thought you did better than third. But okay,
No, that's the whole
Who
thing
won
is-
that 1986? Do you remember?
Everest.
And Everest. How are they now? Did they get on CFTR?
Everest. I don't
Everest.
know.
Okay,
No, I know.
But
you know.
this is a very specific conspiracy theory, like super hype. No wonder
Well,
you paid attention.
Yeah, well, it was the thing that he said that the Buffy St. Marie thing had to have been run past the PMO, and
That's
I'm
hilarious.
like,
That's hilarious.
I'm like, this guy, you're blaming Trudeau for everything. I made some joke about, hey, the weather's turning cold, the leaves are falling. Thanks a lot, Trudeau. And he didn't like that, and he said, well, how do you feel about a certain radio contest that your band was in, and it went from there, and we had this long discussion both in public and then privately
wild.
messaging, and I'm like, what exactly are you contending here? And he didn't really let it go. Like, even though I said, I'm telling you, I didn't know anything of what you're talking about. I don't think they're even,
But if you're gonna fix it, the Jitters, which had that was a legitimately good song. I'm
Yeah.
singing it today in
Yeah.
2023. Like that was
Thank
a great
you.
song.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, he said so too, by the way. He was
So
very
it's a great
complimentary.
song, which, by
Yeah.
the way, if anything, you got robbed. Everest might have had the fix in there, if you want to ask me. So, like, Last of the Red Hot Fools, different version than the one we might know, but
Yeah.
right. But finishing third, to me, if you're going to fix it, why are you fixing it to finish third?
It seemed very Machiavellian of me if I was
What
involved.
was the prize for third?
I don't know. I got a Porter Studio
free
or
CD or
something. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. But his contention, his contention was that my eventual record label, our eventual record label, which was Capital EMI, they arranged this so that they could look like geniuses for plucking us from obscurity and so forth. And it's like, no. First of all, the label that was involved with the contest was CBS, later Sony, but CBS Records, right?
You do realize you're reasoning with a person
Yeah,
who is
I know.
unwell, like mentally unwell. Like the moment they say that the PMO office is going to approve stories that are aired on the Fifth Estate, like that's the moment you realize, oh, this person's a conspiracy theorist who is unwell.
Yeah, well, I don't want to make judgments like that.
Well,
and
I'll
we
do
did
it.
eventually
I'll do
come.
it.
Oh, you can do it. That's fine, but that's your opinion. But
Could you imagine? Like, can you imagine? So when Harper was the prime minister, all stories on the Fifth Estate were run through Harper's office. Like this whole idea that the sitting prime minister has any say in what the CBC News is doing is hilarious.
yeah, I felt that as well, and said so. But this guy felt really strongly about that, and I feel like, well, he has his opinions. He didn't, veer off into, other weird shit, and except the Jitters thing, which is weird enough. And he said, I'd certainly like to see a CBC report about that. And I said, boy, so would I. That'd like revive my
Does
career.
that serve the public interest? Yeah,
Yeah.
Blair, you should go home and pray to your God.
There's a scandal involving
Let's
the Jitters.
talk about what happened when you thought the Jitters finished third and you thought that was on the up and
in
up.
1986.
86 homegrown. And again, I just had a kick out the jams 2 days ago with a woman, and we talked about some obscure artists, and then I pointed out if you grab 20 random people on the CBC, why am I doing that? If you grab 20 random people on the TTC and you just name, do you know this artist? I said you're going to get one or none that know this artist. Like I'm just how I think. Like give me random 20 people on the TTC.
Yeah.
If you right now go get 20 random people in the TTC and say, are you aware of Q107 had a homegrown contest, and you just describe this thing, you'll be lucky if you get one.
Oh yeah, I would say lucky. And honestly, and I'm okay with this, you'd be lucky if one out of 100 knows Last of the Red Hot Fools, like the Jitters song. You know, I
guess it depends on the age.
Well, exactly. Right. Yeah, that's true. But
because I will argue that I'm a Gen X guy. I don't know. It would be tough to miss it. You'd have to I hate anything to do with a guitar in it, and I'm just going to ignore. It would be difficult to miss it if you were of a certain vintage.
Yeah, and actually, I was flattering myself when I said one of 100. I think it's more like one of 1,000.
No, come on.
But
not in this city.
But
Blair.
that's But anyway, I want to say about that guy, we ended up resolving it. And I thought I actually mistook him for somebody else. The reason I engaged with him was because I thought he was somebody else, and I was like, oh God, this guy again going on about Trudeau being responsible for everything. But it was a different guy.
What did you ask him what the PMO office's MO was, like why they wanted to take down Buffy St. Marie?
He had some theories. I did ask him, and he had some theories, and it was to do with the Prime Minister's ongoing quarrels with Native people.
So he wanted to basically hurt. He wanted to hurt Indigenous people in this.
Yes, Indigenous people.
Okay, because that would do it.
Yeah,
that would do it. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, it certainly divided Indigenous people, from what I've observed. It's we should probably talk about that because
since we brought it
spoke
down
with Buffy.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, 3 days before.
I know you did because I was very excited for you because 3 days before. I had just caught wind, somebody tweeted, an Indigenous person tweeted that there's something coming out basically on the Fifth Estate, and it was going to blow, up would be down, black would be white, like the world was going to go topsy-turvy.
Yep.
So in the FOTM group, we were talking, and I actually said, half joking, I said, we're going to find out Buffy's Italian. Like, this is what's going to happen here.
Wow,
yeah, I know.
You said
I know.
That.
Yeah, I said that. Because I knew the St. Marie came from Santa Maria. Right. So I knew the family that raised her in USA was of Italian descent.
Right.
So this, I'm like, it's got, and I was like, I was only half joking or whatever. But I will watch the Fifth Estate and then make my own assessment. Mm-hmm. This kind of parallels with the Beatles song, in the sense that underwhelmed at first by the Beatles, and then the more whatever. So with the Buffy news, like I much like yourself, and I want to hear about your chat with Buffy. Although we should point out the chat's pre Fifth Estate release, because I don't think Buffy would do that chat after October 27th, 2023. Like, you got in there 3 days before, but she wouldn't do it today.
She did it October 23rd, and we had arranged it a couple of months before, and it was for my songwriting workshop, which is called Song Studio. If you know any songwriters who want to hear from the best, she was our keynote speaker this year, but we've had Steve Earle, Lyle Lovett, Rick Emmett, Larry Gowan, Bruce Coburn. We've had a bunch of Ed Robertson. We've had a bunch of great keynote speakers over the years. So Buffy was booked for this, and I was kind of surprised, because it's a songwriting workshop. I was surprised that her management wanted to vet the questions beforehand, because they're just going to be about songwriting,
right?
You know? But I thought, well, I want her. I want to have her on. I admire her deeply, and I wanted to have her on. So I sent the questions, and they approved them. They actually changed. The only thing they changed were my biographical notes in the introduction, because they were biographical notes and they were too specific, and I'd gotten them off the internet, and they wanted to correct the record. And it was a pretty subtle change. And I thought, really? You're changing just that? You know? But that's what they did, and then we spoke. She was fantastic. She was such a great guest.
Of course.
So gracious, so warm, and all about creativity in a world where so many people are about destruction. You know, I mean, it was very moving. I found it very moving. She talked about, you know, how to tap into your creativity and what she does in her history and pivotal moments in her life and so forth, without talking about her, you know, birth story. And we had a great time. We talked for an hour and a bit, and she took questions from our group and so forth. And then the next day, I think I read you.
I
saying
texted
something.
you.
Yeah.
Because I was very interested in your chat with Buffy, because I will disclose, it's no secret. For years, I tried to get Buffy on Toronto Mike.
Yes.
For years.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, and no secret to listeners or anyone who reads TorontoMike.com, but I adored that woman. Like, I, much like yourself, big fan, huge. I grew up with Sesame Street when she was on. Like, from the first conscious moments I remember Buffy St. Marie. So I love this woman out of the gate. That's how you get somebody you got to throw them on Sesame Street when I was growing up in the late 70s. Okay.
That's right.
So I love this woman. So when I heard, the Fifth Estate had something about Buffy, initially my back got up like, leave her alone.
Yeah, me too.
Leave her alone.
Yeah.
Like, this is, don't fuck with Buffy St. Marie. Like, this is an icon in this. It's like going after Gord Downey or something. It's like, leave her alone.
Yeah.
So that was the initial. Then I read the piece and I'm like, oh, I started to process it, and I was actually, and then I want to hear what you think, because who cares what I think. But I sensed myself getting angry at Buffy St. Marie. Like, I need to watch this thing. So I go on a bike ride, I got work to do, but then I can settle down. I had the YouTube link, and I'm going to watch The Fifth Estate. I watched it twice, bang, bang, and then the next day watched it again with my wife. And now I'm curious for your thoughts, because my thoughts are that Buffy St. Marie duped us for decades. Like, this is one of the great hoaxes in the history of the world. She's not Canadian. She's not Indigenous. And I'm actually legitimately hurt. I wish Buffy would talk to us. She hasn't made a public statement since this, because she made her statement like the day before. She put out a video, like the day before this dropped. I wish she would talk to us now. I feel like this is like that with that movie about the Queen, where Lady Diana's dead. We need to hear from you, Queen. Like, I need to hear from Buffy. I just need her to talk, to come clean, basically, and talk. And by the way, this was October 27th that this Fifth Estate dropped. Yeah. We're now talking on November 15th. That's almost a month ago. If the Fifth Estate put out blatant lies about your ancestry, your Indigenous ancestry, and that these were untrue, I would think the next day you'd be working on your retort video, because we all want to believe Buffy. But the longer this goes with her radio silence, like, she's just, I know who I am, I know who loves me, peace out. I'm 100% convinced that Buffy is a white American, and I'm angry about the fact she deceived us for so many decades. Like, I'm pissed off. I can't even listen to a Buffy song anymore. I want to hear what you think, Blair Packham.
Well, I'm hesitant. I will share what I think, because I'm compulsive, I think.
You have to. I'm going to rough you up.
Yeah. But I do think it's not my place to, I'm a human being, but I'm not an Indigenous person, and it doesn't affect me directly except emotionally, right? So it hasn't kept me from any opportunities. I've certainly enjoyed Buffy St. Marie so much over the decades, but I do feel like I don't have a cultural or heritage stake.
Well, you're not Indigenous.
Yeah,
neither am I.
And so I feel like, but I do think this. I think humans are messy. I said it before. Humans are messy. Like that guy I spoke with who had that conspiracy theory. Humans are messy, and I'm glad that he and I resolved it to a point where we were not more than civil, I thought, and I think that's good. But humans are messy. She was young. I'm not. I'm good. It's going to sound like I'm making excuses for her, but I'm not.
She was young in that she was in her 20s.
Well, she was even younger. In fact, when the story sort of started, and you get told things by your parents. My mom used to make up shit. I loved my mom. I love her still, but she said that I was descended from the pirate Calico Jack Rackham. And my father was like,
okay, but Blair,
what?
Let's say you put that in your bio because you believed it to be true because your mom told it. At some point when you learned this wasn't true, you would either correct the public record, or you would stop presenting yourself as this.
And you wouldn't double down or triple down or whatever. No, I agree. I agree. But Bob Dylan never corrected it. The idea that he rode the rails, in the Dust Bowl.
I feel like he did, because we don't tell that story anymore. Like, we know he's from Minnesota. We know the Robert Zimmerman story.
Well, he didn't in his book. He didn't go on about it. So yeah, that's a good point. But I don't know. And
he didn't go like taking awards for rail riders. Like, this is the annual award for the greatest rail rider, and then he's accepting. And then there's some guy on the rails like, I missed out again because Dylan keeps taking these awards for the rail riders.
Right, and I get your point. I know you're being humorous, but I get your point. And I'm not making excuses for Buffy because I think it's terrible and I think it's awful. I also think there's a possibility that everybody's wrong, that everybody's wrong and everybody's right. And I'm withholding final judgment, and I don't suppose I'm ever going to get to final judgment because I'm not an indigenous person. I have to say the CBC documentary is very compelling. It's very persuasive, and it's very disappointing and hurtful. That said, I still love and admire Buffy same way. You can love and admire somebody, and they can be very, very flawed. And if that's what's going on here, and it looks like it probably is, I guess that's just what I have to accept. But it's a hard pill to swallow. Man, do I love that song. That's Jason Isbell, and it paints a picture to me of some microcosm of America, of North America. He's a working guy with a family, and he has an accident. I was emptying my bladder on a 20-foot ladder, and should have gone to find some shade, he said. And then he goes to the doctor. Doctor gives him a pocket full of pills. Now I'm out of work. My back still hurts. And I can't work. And his wife's going to leave him, and the kids won't even know his name, and his life is falling apart. What a picture this guy paints. I went to see Jason Isbell at Massey Hall this summer, and it was life-changing in that I suddenly started writing songs again, and I started working on my record again that I'd sort of abandoned, and so inspiring. And he's such a great guitar player. Oh my God. And it's just song after song, and the audience was so great. There wasn't any of that shit, the people yelling, "We love you, Jason." It's not like, I don't care, guy in third row in section 207. I don't care if you love him. Shut up. I'm trying to listen to the song. And instead, the audience they're singing along, but quietly, to almost every song. Like they know the word. This is an audience of 3,000 people who knew the words and loved the words.
Was Dave Hodge there?
Probably. Is Dave Hodge a big fan?
I think Dave Hodge would be there. And I just will tell everybody he's back to kick out his top 100 songs of 2023. Either next week or the next week after. I've lost track because I'm off to Montreal here. But sounds like that was a great show. And this guy's a great songwriter.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a bunch of shows at Massey Hall this year. I don't normally go to shows because they're so expensive. Saw Bob Dylan just a few weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, that was something else. I've never seen Bob before. I'm a big fan too.
How can you afford these expensive tickets?
Well, I didn't have a new friend. A new friend took me. I say a new friend because my old friends wouldn't take me, but my new friends would. Old friends know
That's
better.
A good friend taking you to Bob Dylan.
Yeah, well, I don't know him very well, but yeah, he said I thought who would like to go see? Who do I know who would like to go see Bob Dylan?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Not even Sylvia Tyson was at that show. I was chatting with her, and she didn't even go to that show.
Yeah.
Good for you. And he was on the ball, Mr. Dylan. He's got to be 82 or 83 years old now.
He was on the ball, but it was weird. Like, he's been singing the same way for, for 30 years now.
Right.
And it's back phrasing. So if the tempo is like, he's like, you never know who said, like, what are you talking about? Just like, it's like talking sort of in a confidential kind of way. Yeah. But then, like he did, what's that song called? Anyway, he did one song, and every line, there's Dylan fans are going to kill me because I just can't remember the title.
Lauren Honickman is yelling at his
sorry, Lauren,
right now.
Yeah, and of course, and it's one of his well-known songs. But pass the bottle over here. I'll be your baby tonight. But every time he got to the pass the bottle line, he'd go, turn the window. And he'd talk like that. You couldn't really make out the words. And then he'd go, pass the bottle over here. Like that. And then he'd go back to, na-na-na, na-na-na. And it was odd, but it was great. I'm such an admirer. And the band, they were great.
And you never know when it's going to be Bob Dylan's last visit to Toronto. Like, that could have been it. You never know.
Never know.
Good for you for going to that.
Yeah,
and good for your new friend there.
Well, no kidding. What a
Let me know if he wants more friends.
I will. He seems to be a great guy. We had dinner before, and it was really nice. Yeah,
it's working out for you.
Yeah.
What do you think is better, your Bob Dylan impression or your Mark Weisblot impression?
Oh, Mark Weisblot, way better. Everybody does Dylan. Hardly anybody does Mark Weisblot, and I do Mark Weisblot better.
He had a question for you. He said he recorded it's called Radio Recall, and it's for CIUT.
Yeah.
So I guess he talks to a couple of hosts about what he remembers about CIUT. He said they did shelf it for 2 months, but then it went online. And I actually listened, and I got a shout out. So thank you, Mark, for that.
Oh, nice.
He has suggested that you get a similar turn as the teen DJ of a decade earlier, and he wondered, have you been contacted by anybody at CIUT for Radio Recall?
No, but I think the people involved, there are a few people that I remember from those days.
Steve Fruitman?
Yeah, Steve Fruitman, Joel Eves. Who else? There are a couple of people from way back when. No, I haven't been contacted, but I'd love that. I mean, as I've told in that story, the new guy in town when I was the 14-year-old DJ was 13-year-old Kevin Nelson.
Right.
And but unfortunately, Kevin's passed. So
him and his father met premature demises. Sadly.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home, pillars of the community since 1921.
Shout out to Sharon Taylor as well, my dear friend Sharon Taylor, who now lives in Winnipeg. Yeah. But she and Kevin were best friends, and they loved each other. And I know his death hit her hard.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, she's your driver, of course.
Boy, now you got her mad at me again.
I follow her on Facebook, so I am aware of the Winnipeg move. She has a child in Winnipeg, right?
Yeah, and
because that'll get you to move. I think.
Yeah, and I think and her child, who's I think 30 now, 28, something like that, is I believe living with her now. So,
okay, and I saw on Facebook she's single.
Apparently, she's single. Yeah. Yeah. So there.
And again, if people don't know, they should listen to her episode of Toronto Mic'd. She was the program director at 680 CFTR, where they played Closer Every Day and other great jams. Like
and she worked as PD and MD at various stations across the country. Oh,
and
for years.
Kiss, right?
Yep.
This is not the Kiss with a K. This is with a C.
Yeah, when they
country music.
when they did country music, and she brought in all kinds of famous country artists to do live shows at the Kiss studios, and she did a great job.
she came to a TMLX event, and Larry Fedoruk was there, who was working at KISS, and they had like they reunited. I think
They
it was
really
Great
did.
Lakes
I was there
Brewery.
too. Yeah, it was great.
Okay, are you going
Yeah.
to come to TMLX 14?
Well,
on
only if
December
Danny Graves
9th?
isn't there, because that one, the one that I went to.
I don't think he'll be there.
I went and I thought I was I didn't
You
think.
thought you were the headliner?
Well,
But I never said
yeah.
you were the headliner.
No, that's true. But then
You said,
later,
"You can't
when
get
you
someone bigger
when
than
you
me."
refer back to that TMLX,
Oh,
you
I
say,
talked
and it
about
was
Danny
so
Graves?
great. Danny Graves was there. Anyway, what are you doing next week? Or whatever. And I'd be like,
Oh.
hey, hello.
How do you think Rob Proust feels? He had
That's
to open up for you.
poor old Rob Proust. Yeah, no, you're right.
Think about that. The guy from Spoons had to open up for the guy from Jitters, so the guy from The Watchmen could
get all the accolades.
Could get all the accolades. But you were amazing. You're always
Thank you.
amazing. I was at an event. David Kynes invited me to this breakfast. It was a Hollywood suite breakfast, and I saw David Quinton Steinberg there, and he smiled, and we chatted, and I'm like, I only know this guy because of Blair Packham.
Right. He's David Quinton Steinberg is a beautiful guy who I haven't seen now in a couple of months.
I met him. I was in your backyard, and I was hanging with him. Is that
Yeah.
the last time you saw him?
No. Maybe it's not a couple of months, but I haven't seen him in a while. Anyway, I haven't talked to him in a long time.
He's
in a
busy.
while.
There might be a Rush. I mean, obviously they're going to need a new drummer, but there might be a Rush reunion because Getty's hinting at it.
Oh, I didn't know that. I do know this.
hinting
that
at it.
Getty has a book and a book tour, and David's
Right.
busy with that.
So maybe when you do your book tour, you go on all the shows.
Maybe David
although
will
I
talk
haven't
to
got
me
the call yet. Tell David
Okay.
Getty should come on Toronto Mike to promote the book.
Well, I will tell him that, but he will. He's very protective. That's his job.
Well, but there's a book tour, right?
Yep.
Like he's talking to people.
Yep.
Why not me? What am I going to do? I'm not going to.
Exactly. What? Now you know how I feel compared to Danny Graves.
By the way, the Buffy interview that you recorded,
Yeah.
that was so great 3 days before the bomb dropped. Was that like already devoured? So that was live, right? Like that was
It was live. It was
event? Okay.
recorded.
Because I'm wondering, like, if you were recording it and then the news dropped 3 days later, does that kind of burn the keynote? Like, I would think today it would be different if your keynote was a recorded conversation with Buffy St. Marie.
Yeah, I don't know. We're not ashamed of it. We feel like we talked about songwriting, and she is I don't think her songwriting ability or credits were in any way.
Okay, let me ask you a real
misrepresented.
question as a songwriter.
Yeah.
Her catalog of music, and
Yeah.
again, she's won an Oscar and Universal Soldier, written in the at the Purple Onion in Yorkville, because we talked to the co-owner who talked about that story.
Right.
So all of that, if she's an Italian American, an American of Italian descent, and she never claims indigenous ancestry and never claims to be part of that 60s scoop, etc. If she never makes those claims, is she as well known and respected for her songwriting today if she doesn't invent that history?
She should be. I think that's separate.
But you can't separate it. Like you might.
Well,
you can't actually.
Universal Soldier isn't about being indigenous. It's from her perspective, and if her perspective was misrepresented, I don't think that changes her perspective. And I think Love Lifts Us Up Where We Belong. That's an incredible pop song.
No doubt.
And so many others. If I were an indigenous person, I would question perhaps the motives behind Power in the Blood and the other records she's made that stress indigeneity. I understand, why that would be. I really do understand why that would be a problem and why it would be hurtful. I feel like it's not for me to make a final pronouncement, though. So
there's a recent guest we spoke about that album with, and right after this jam by Blair Packham's fifth jam, we're going to talk about that gentleman who rode over here because you introduced me to him, and then a few others who have dropped by because they are friends of Blair, and I think you sort of vouched for me in some respect. So I'm going to run down a short list of these people who came on Toronto Mike because they're friends of Blair. But first, this.
I'll never forget the first day I met her. That September morning was clear and fresh. The way she spoke and laughed at my jokes and the way she rubbed herself against the edge of my desk. She became a magic mystery to me, and we'd sit together in double history twice a week. And some days we'd walk the same way home, and it's surprising how quick a little rain can clear the streets. We dreamed of her and compared our dreams, but that was all that I ever tasted. For she lied to me with her body, you see. I lied to myself about the chances I wasted. The times we were close were far and few between. In the darkness of the dances in the school canteen, did she close her eyes as I did when we held each other tight? And la 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 means I love you.
This is back-to-back jam kickings with Billy Bragg. Tell me about this song, why you love it.
Well, take that, Dave Hodge. No, I don't know. Dave Hodge may be a huge fan of Billy Bragg.
Oh, for sure.
It's just such a beautiful song about unrequited childhood love. And as a person who had many crushes on girls in grade school and middle school and high school, I related big time when I first heard this song. I was like, oh my God, this. And it never, because it's Billy Bragg in the era when he only accompanied himself with guitar. There's no drums, there's no bass, only the trumpet that comes in occasionally, and a harmony here and there. And I just love it. And I love his accent.
Absolutely. I'll say he's England's Ron Hawkins from Lowest of the Low, not Robin.
That's right, yes. Yes. I have a connection to Ronnie Hawkins too, though, by the way.
Okay, give me it.
Well, he did a remake of Mary Lou. Mary Lou.
Of course, yes, by Ron. Yeah, his big hit, I guess.
Yeah, and it was and it was in the 80s, maybe 1989, 1990.
But that's his song, right? Like he's remaking his own song.
Yeah, but it was for Prom Night 2, I think, the movie, and I sang all the background vocals on it.
Every time somebody brings up If I Had $1 Million, I am obligated to tell them that Blair Packham is in that chorus.
Tell him I got a royalty check the other day for $42 for If I Had $1 Million. So I'm getting closer to $1 million.
Is Kurt Swinghammer in the chorus?
I think he probably is. He was part of our group at the time and still is. I mean, we're still dear friends. So, yeah, probably.
I'm trying to remember. Have you been on Toronto Mike since Kurt Swinghammer was on Toronto Mike?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, what did you think of the Kurt Swinghammer episode?
I thought it was great. He's very articulate and passionate about art, and I'm a great admirer of his. So yeah, I thought it was great. Your conversations with my friends, they're different because if it's with somebody I don't know, it has a different effect on me.
Of course,
because they'll be telling a story that I was there for, or they'll be telling a story that I know about, and so it hits me differently. Michael Phillip Voyevoda, his.
I was going to ask about him next.
Yeah, he. I actually didn't realize. You become friends with people and you're not looking at their Wikipedia page when you're friends, so you don't always know all their credits. So as he talked about, and you would bring up stuff because that's your job, interviewing him. And I think, holy shit, he did that.
Right.
And this is a guy I've known for 30 something years, 40 years, and I love him, and we hang out. I mean, not as often as I would like, but when we see each other.
Well, he lives in my hood.
Yes, he lives out here. That's right. Yeah, but he's such a great guy and so talented. But when faced with his list of credits, I was like, oh my God, I forgot he did that.
Yeah, these were some great guests who have been on the last few months that really did. You basically introduced me to these guys. So we mentioned Kurt Swinghammer. So that's a great friend of Blair who came over, and he was he biked over with a bicycle, I should point out, because Michael Phillip Voyevoda came over on a motorcycle, and that was cool too. And I loved my chat. He was just amazing. And I don't know, he gave me 90 minutes and we covered so much ground, and I don't think you'll find a more definitive Michael Philip Voda conversation. So thank you for that. A few more I'll burn through. Robert Priest.
Yeah, the poet.
Yeah.
I admire him deeply as
He
well.
played live down here. He was amazing too.
Yeah, a beautiful singer, poet and singer-songwriter, and does both really well. The Jitters played on his first recording. We were his backup band, and I have probably more books by Robert Priest than any other writer
Wow.
in my collection.
Wow. Okay. Well, let's talk about another great musician. I want to hear what you thought. I'm dying to know what you thought about the Bob Wiseman episode of Toronto Mike, because you introduced me to Bob.
Right. Bob and I aren't close. I like him. I admire him. I don't know what Bob thinks about me. Bob's enigmatic. I used to think that Bob would think that I was uncool. Now I think he doesn't care about cool. But before, I used to think he would be dismissive of me. And being a people pleaser, I think that probably was in the back of my mind. I'd want him to like me, but I don't care as much because I feel like he doesn't care as much, and I admire him even more now. Your conversation with him was great. He can be I don't know how would you describe it, Bob?
It was tricky, and I found it to be tricky. It's not, like Kurt Swinghammer and Michael Philip Voyevoda were much easier conversations. Yeah. And he kept checking. There was an appointment that he had to get to, and it seemed to sort of, at sometimes he was very conscious of the fact that we had a hard stop, and that hard stop was like 60. And I think 60 minutes for Bob Wiseman, as I research other Bob Wiseman conversations, might be a record. Like, I'm not even sure there is a 60-minute Bob Wiseman out there. But so we had a hard stop, which I don't love, but I respect. Mm-hmm. And also, I could tell he really, really enjoyed listening to the music he worked on and supports. Like, so when I would play a song that he helped, birth or in some regard, he really enjoyed listening to it to a point where I got a message very early, like, don't fade down too quickly. Like, he's having a moment with this song. So one criticism I got is, you get an hour with Bob and you played like 20 minutes of music. Well,
right.
You have to be in the room with these artists, and sometimes you need to roll with what's happening live.
I wouldn't profess to know whether Bob likes talking about himself or not, but I suspect not.
I suspect not as well.
Yeah, and I think that's fine. It's Bob's totally refreshing, actually, in a world where people, including me, love to talk about themselves. Right. Bob doesn't really.
So how did I get him in the like? As I look back at the Bob Wiseman conversation, how did I get that man in my basement for 60 minutes to talk about whatever I wanted?
I don't know. I don't want to take credit for it.
Well, you deserve partial credit.
Well, maybe partial credit. I feel like Bob and I have been a little more in each other's orbit in the last couple of years, I guess. He came to my house to produce some vocals with Robert Priest, and so the connector there is Robert. But I've known Bob since when he was in Blue Rodeo,
Of course.
But we never. I don't know. We never connected as friends.
I can see that.
Yeah.
We are very different people.
Yeah, very different people. But again, I admire him and I admire the stuff he's done. He produced Ron Sexsmith's first recording and did a great job and made a really cool thing, And his solo stuff, he's written some songs I deeply admire, and I've done shows with him as well, where he's songwriter shows,
Right.
And just sat there kind of amazed at the risks he would take as a performer. And when I say kind of amazed, I actually mean amazed. But
it's a Paul McCartney song.
Yeah, maybe I'm amazed. I was amazed. But watching Bob or listening to Bob, I thought, well, this could be difficult with you. I did pitch you to him because I thought, well, there will be an interesting experience.
That dynamic works.
It was really curiosity. I wanted to hear what that would sound like.
Okay, there's another.
I know
artsy,
exactly where you're going.
But first, I'll just on the Bob front.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed is once I said the words Blue Rodeo, I noticed it was a bit of a third rail, even though I couldn't talk to Bob Wiseman without talking a little bit about Blue Rodeo. Like, I'm going to have to go there. He didn't say don't go there. I just, I sensed he doesn't care for anything Blue Rodeo.
Well, I believe I warned you by text.
Right, and then I think I
and you bristled a little bit.
I bristled a little only because telling me ahead of time, Bob doesn't like talking about Blue Rodeo, kind of messes me up because I have to talk about Blue Rodeo, or I'm actually like, it's like when Erica M. her first time I was going to have Erica M. on, and she said she didn't want to talk about much music. And then I politely said, maybe we don't do it right now because it's so.
Right.
But Bob Wiseman, I honestly think most people listening to Toronto Mike know Bob Wiseman because he was a member of Blue Rodeo. This is what I think.
Well, that may be true. I can't speak for most people, but he did have a what I consider still does, but he had a prodigious solo career in the 90s and toured the country a bunch of times and had some pretty cool bands. But the best known to the mainstream, to my aunt,
those
Lily,
randos on the subway that we're talking to.
They would know Blue Rodeo.
Right.
They wouldn't know necessarily the history of keyboard players in Blue Rodeo, but if you said he was like a founding member of that band and so forth, they'd be like, oh, cool, Blue Rodeo, yeah, sure.
And again, if it's not clear, because here I am talking about how it wasn't easy, I actually madly loved my chat with Bob Wiseman. Like, I actually enjoyed the fact that he wasn't like a paint by numbers, easy chat or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I had to work for it, and it was kind of exciting to me that, I'm going to have to do some like work, and I'm going to have to like adapt in real time to an unconventional guest. And that, I think, and I can't remember which came first, but if that came first, I think it came first. That absolutely prepared me for a chat with Jane Siberry. So Jane Siberry was, again, I think you either sent her an email or gave me her email or something, and I just shared the video of the Jane Siberry chat like this week.
Right.
So no one had ever seen the video, but when I drop a fun fact on her and she says she doesn't find that to be a fun fact, you can see it now, like her facial expression, everything. What did you think of Jane Siberry on Toronto Mike?
Well, I love Jane. I love Jane. But she is like no one else, and in a way, and I think, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but in a way I think she'd agree that it's not our job to be anyone else. It's our job to be ourselves, and she does that, and I admire her. In addition to loving her, I admire her. She was very generous with me with my songwriting workshop, where she was a mentor to songwriters, and I thought, holy moly, some of these young songwriters, they don't know how great she is as a writer and as an artist and as a creative person. One of the things that I love so much about having someone like that mentor at the workshop is it's not just about, well, you need to put a verse here and you need to make the verse 8 lines and it needs to rhyme like the A, B, and so forth. It doesn't get into the nitty gritty of the technical stuff, maybe. It gets into, why are you writing this song? And how do you express yourself more deeply? And how do you connect to the message? And who are you writing to? That kind of thing. And Jane addresses stuff like that in her process, as well as, what do I want to say as an individual? And she does it beautifully and kindly and warmly. And when she does something like, well, I don't think that's a fun fact, it's not to be mean at all. It's just expressing her feeling that maybe there are more fun things to talk about.
It's refreshing that because most people would just be nice in the interview and let it go or whatever. But the fact that she wanted to converse about and the fact that I couldn't let it go, actually, so we had a great chat about why she doesn't find that particularly interesting. I loved it. Yeah. So I enjoyed Jane Siberry like I enjoyed Bob Wiseman. And even though listeners might find them a little, maybe not standoffish, but I would say that from my perspective, those are wonderful conversations, and thank you for helping to make them happen.
Well, I'm pleased that they worked out. I thought they were both very enjoyable. All the ones you've mentioned. Anytime I have a friend on, I think, I want to hear that. But also, I listen anyway. I'm a regular listener. But I think people are. When I say people, I mean in general, listeners. All of us are so used to interviews with people who want to tell their story, want to talk about themselves, and are quite practiced at it.
Yes, the talking points.
Yeah, and they're like, well, it's funny you should mention that, Mike. and it's sometimes it feels a little greasy. And so it's nice to have somebody go,
like a sales pitch.
Yeah. And so and I know I can come off that way. I wonder if maybe Bob thinks of me that way sometimes. But I'm, it's just me. I mean, I have nothing to promote. I'm not here. I'm just talking about you and me and my friends, But that said, I do have an easygoing way about me that I bet some people would be put off by, and who would love the kind of somewhat standoffish, and I don't even think that's it, but the truth telling aspect of a Bob Wiseman or a Jane Siberry.
All right, I'm going to press play on jam number 6, but first I need to know what you think. Do you think, Blair Packham, I need your honest answer on this as always, but is it a fun fact that the director of the Mimi on the Beach video would go on many years later to father the most decorated Canadian Olympian of all time? Is that a fun fact, Blair?
I think that's a fun fact. Sorry, Jane.
It's a very fun fact, Blair. Come on.
I woke up this morning and I took a look around and all that I've got. These days I've been looking in the mirror and wondering if that's me looking back or not. I'm still the apple of my mama's eye. I'm my daddy's worst fears realized. Here laid all this real estate don't seem all that real to me sometimes. I'm back out on that road again, turning beast into the wind. And those that break and bend, I'm the other kind. I'm the other kind.
Yeah, man.
Did you know he was in The Wire?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me to check the liner notes. That's what I want you to do. Okay, talk to me.
Well, Steve Earle. I admire Steve Earle greatly. I've seen him play a few times. A song like this appeals to me because I love the melody. I love the words. Specifically, I'm back out on this road again. Turn this beast into the wind. There are those that break and bend. I'm the other kind. And I find that I'm 64, Mike.
Oh.
And
It's another Beatles song.
yeah, exactly. I've hardly even thought about that song this year when I'm 64. And when I turn 65, I'll think, oh, shit, I should have played it.
You missed your window.
Yeah, I should have played a show or something. I don't know. But
Not too late.
you know, you get older and you look back on your life. I'm sure you have this experience yourself, even at your tender age. But you look back and you try and make sense of it all, and the people you love and the people you maybe don't love as much as you used to, and the people who hurt you and the people who are there for you, and you know, just all this. Like I say, humans are messy, right? Sometimes those people are the same people, by the way.
Right. Yeah.
And I take strength from a song like this. There are those that break and bend. I'm the other kind. Like, I'm not sure that I believe that I'm the other kind. Like, I break and bend. I've had some awful things happen to me, like most of us have, you know? And sometimes it just seems impossible to go on. And honestly, a song like this, you know, I know there are people listening going, this song? Really? This
Like, why not Copperhead Road?
Yeah.
That's what they're saying.
Well, because Copperhead Road's about a specific story about, you know, and this is about strength and finding inner strength in the face of adversity, you know. And to me, I need that sometimes. And I admire Steve Earle. You know, at one point I was looking at my CD collection. I had more Steve Earle records than anybody else. I didn't even know that I admired him so much. But you know, I had more than Elvis Costello, who would be my next favorite, and more than the Beatles, who are my always favorite. There's Steve Earle. And went to see him at Massey Hall this summer. And I sat with, who did I sit with?
It was Dave Hodge.
No, but Dave Bedini. I sat with Bedini.
Wow.
And Tim Mack. Tim Mack, guitar tech. But Tim Mack also has a band called Tim Mack's Peep Show. Tim Mack, guitar tech to Carlos Santana right now, but also to Elvis Costello for 100 years. And then Dave Bedini, of course, needs no introduction, you know. And I was sitting off to the side all alone in an empty section, and well, sort of empty section, and ran into those guys, and they said, hey, come sit with us. There's an empty seat beside us. So I did. And it turned out sitting right beside us was a Jitters fan, which I think we wanted to know how things were going and were the Jitters going to get back together. This is in the break, and I think Bedini was getting annoyed.
He said, let's talk about Rio Static.
Exactly. But and Steve Earle, by the way, full audience full of boomers yelling, "We love you, Steve," making it all about them. You mother. Anyway, Like, you go to a show not to make it about yourself. Okay, folks,
Right.
listeners?
Did anyone ask him to play Freebird? That's what I want to know. But
That old song.
Bedini, did you have you attended any of these West End Phoenix events happening in the new space?
I haven't. I should.
You missed Art Bergman there.
I'm an admirer of Bedini as well, but I have to say the West End, East End divide in Toronto really bugs me. And so when he launched the West End Phoenix, I was like, really? Do we
Right.
have to do this? The idea that to me, it's like,
Well, he's an Etobicoke guy, Dave
it's,
Bedini.
but it's the cool kids in the cafeteria thing that bugs me. It's sort of like, yeah, we're in the West End. I have friends who say I won't cross the valley. I've invited them to my home, and they're like, yeah, I don't cross the valley.
I've come around on this as I age. I think because I was born and raised in the West End, I always felt like once I crossed Yonge Street, basically, I wasn't quite sure where I was.
It became the hinterlands or something. I know. Well, you came to my house though.
Well, that's because in the last 12 years, I've only in the last decade or so adopted this I bike everywhere rule set.
Yeah.
So if I'm invited to, I'm thinking of a lot of my East York friends, and Bob Willett, who tells me he's in the old Toronto because he's on the other side of the Danforth. But all these times I have to venture, I'm like, or Cam Gordon, or going to the Only to see Ron Hawkins, all these places. I bike there, and I've got brand new appreciation for how wonderful it is in the in East York. I don't get as much time in Scarborough as I'd like, although I did bike through Rouge Park.
Beautiful park.
Oh God!
Oh my goodness!
It makes our little High Park look like a tiny little stamp or whatever. But I mean, I did a ride to the Scarborough Bluffs. I know that's where Larry Gowan lives. He lives by the
still
bluffs
does,
there.
yeah.
Like, I have such appreciation now for what's happening east of Yonge, but without a doubt, Toronto has this whole West End, East End thing, and it's stupid.
I think so, but I guess it's where you're from anyway. So I didn't.
That's
so
what you're comfortable with.
Yeah, in terms of I was always a West End guy until it came time to buy a house, and at that time I could get a house for $149,000 on Dagmar Avenue at Jones and Dundas. So I did, my ex-wife and I, and then I became an East End guy, and my West End friends were aghast. Swinghammer said something. Everybody said something like, "Really? You're moving to the East End?" It's like, really? You're making a remark? Like, I'm buying a house. I have a chance to buy a house.
Right.
Right.
So, yeah. But I know where that's coming from. And I think it's all in fun. But I will say the West End Phoenix, for the longest time, never went close to the other side of the Humber River. So the West End Phoenix really did seem to end at the Humber River. It wasn't going to go west of the Humber River.
Right.
We are forgotten here. But again, much like you found a house for $149. I paid significantly more than that. But when I was buying a house with my current wife, Monica, my last wife, I suppose, then, we were priced out of a lot of the spots. You can't go live in the High Park area or even the Junction and all this without, you can't afford it.
It's ridiculous.
And that's how I ended up here. And I'm glad I did. I do love it here. But that's the reason I ended up in New Toronto.
You've made this your neighborhood.
10 years now, and right on the waterfront trail, and I can bike to Blair Packham's house, no problem. That was a great day, by the way. Although I thought it was your birthday. You know that, right? I thought it was a birthday party, and I think I might have said happy birthday to you.
No, I think it was shortly after my birthday. So in fact, it could have been
like a birthday, because then I found out it's just a party, and I met a lot of cool people there.
It's just
like a
Scream
party. Queen was there. I'm trying to remember her name, but there was a Scream Queen. Like, she would be screaming in horror movies. There was a woman there I had a good chat with in your backyard, a Scream Queen.
I'm trying to figure out who that was. It wasn't Leslie Donaldson.
I can't remember names now.
You should look up, even right now in this moment, you should look up Leslie Donaldson. Leslie is spelled Lesleh, Leslie Donaldson. She is an actor who has appeared in movies that you would have seen.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play your next jam.
Okay, and then you'll look her up.
I'm going to look her up.
Okay, she's a lovely person.
The other side. That might be the woman I talked to. Let's find out.
man.
Black Crow. I saw them 2 summers ago with Canada Kev and Stu Stone.
Oh wow,
Good times.
I
Tell
have
me about
never
this,
seen them. I just love this album so much. Shake Your Moneymaker.
Yeah.
Is that actually? Wait, is that?
Yeah,
was
Shake
that,
Your Moneymaker.
Okay, yeah.
I had the cover of Too Hard to Handle and
Yeah.
yeah.
It was beautiful record. I noticed that some of my choices here are like southern rock kind of things.
Almost, yeah. A lot of them have a country flavor with
Yeah.
Jason
Isbell and
and of course Steve Earle.
Yeah. It's funny. My go-to jams, as you young people say,
You hate that, though,
I
right?
do.
They're songs.
They're
right?
songs. Yeah, would be
Kick out the songs.
Yeah, I know. But Kick Out the Jams is like it's from the MC5. It's a,
Of course.
it's just like, okay, so my go-tos would be like sensitive singer-songwriter songs because they make me cry. But
Jim
then
Croce inside.
well, maybe not Jim Croce, but sure. But then like I like so much music that I could just sit here for years, literally years.
We can do that,
We could do my Blair's new wave favorites, new wave jams. In fact, we could play the jam.
If we do new wave jams, though, we can bring in from New York City. We'll bring in Rob Bruce to react to your jams.
There you go.
He'd love
That'd be great. Yeah, but I could do folk music. I could do country music. I could do there's so many genres. Jazz, even which is a bit of a stretch for me. But but the hard rock guitar stuff. And I know this isn't by today's standards isn't that hard. It's not Swedish death metal or anything like that. But it's
Well, compared to yesterday's Kick Out the Jams, which you probably haven't listened to, this will seem like elevator music.
Well, yeah. What was okay?
Her name is Sanaya Saperji, and
Okay.
she's a sports media. She's currently with The Athletic, but she was at the Toronto Star, and she covers sports. And it was heavy stuff, man. I think it might be the heaviest jam kicking out of the the 150 we've done.
No kidding. Okay,
it was
well,
heavy.
I will listen to that.
Check it out.
Yeah, because I consider this heavy-ish.
Well,
But,
it's Q107 music at the time.
at the
That's
time,
when
yeah.
it's the Black Crows. And
Yeah.
I dig, the brothers, the Robinsons. I dig it. But I want to get back to Leslie Donaldson for a minute. Leslie,
Okay.
Lesleh.
Yeah.
This is the woman I chatted. She was in your backyard. We had a good conversation. And she was known as Scream Queen. That was her title. She's a Scream Queen. Here are some of the films she was in. Shout out to Ridley Funeral Home. She was in a movie called Funeral Home. She was in a movie called Happy Birthday to Me, Curtains, Deadly Eyes, and she appeared on Friday the 13th, the series. So I guess there was a television series. Well, let me see. Her debut was in Running, but as you look at her credits, it's a whole whack of stuff you would know and love. Just to shout out a couple, The Littlest Hobo. We always like to shout that out. And a bunch of these Star Wars, like there's one called Star Wars Droids. She did 13 episodes in 1985, and then she was in Ewoks. She did 13 episodes of that show. Night Heat, Street Legal. Cynthia Dale will be in the basement in early December. So
Nice.
I just said Street Legal. Okay, she
Legal,
did an
yeah.
episode called The Firm. So maybe we'll talk about that. But yeah, the Scream Queen is a friend of
Yeah.
yours, I guess a neighbor. And I remember her husband too is an actor, and I wish I could remember his name. But
David Blacker.
yeah, and he's done some cool shit too.
Yeah. He that I don't remember off the top of my head, but yes, he has. They're
Like ENG type
yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
or like
Yeah.
Street Legal type
Yeah.
stuff. And
he seems like a nice guy. I don't know him very well. I don't know Leslie that well, but we've gone for walks in the neighborhood and stuff. I took up the habit of walking during the pandemic.
Good for you.
And it is so.
Okay, so again, this will be a longer jam kicking because I realize I have a lot to catch up with you on.
And we're
so-
only on like song number.
Oh, we got 3 to go.
6. Okay, good.
Yeah, we have 3 to go. But just play a bit of this because it came up around Halloween. We did an episode of Toast, and I kicked this out.
Yes,
with a
you did.
story. Did you?
Bobby Boris Pickett in a parking lot, Sarasota, Florida. The evening air is not too hot. It's Halloween night, 1992. Bobby Boris Pickett with a pickup band, who are hoping just to make a splash, but thinking not tonight as they all shake hands and crank up the chords to the monster mash. 20 people or so glance up from their beers as Bobby is introduced. And for the millionth time in 30 years, the monster's revived and let loose.
Okay, I'm sure I've said this in a previous visit of yours, but this is a great song.
Thank you.
You're a good songwriter.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Consider that being your occupation.
I should actually pursue it, perhaps. I should actually be more busy doing it. It's
So,
funny,
yeah, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say I had a record release, like listening party in a studio, and Ron Sexsmith came and sat like directly between the speakers right at the mixer, you know. And this song is like number 6 on the album, I think. And he listened and didn't say anything like, and you know, I'm talking to people or listening and we're playing it pretty loud. But he turned finally at the end of this one, he went, "That's a good song."
That's praise from Caesar.
Me, I thought, the rest are chopped liver?
You know what? We got to talk about that. I feel like I'll be your Dr. Milky.
Okay, yes,
we can
yes,
talk about
please,
that. Okay.
yeah.
But I'm glad to hear you listened to the most recent episode of Toast, because I basically, the way I built it up is that Bobby Boris Pickett, yes, he has a hit, number 1 hit,
Yeah.
Monster Mash.
Yeah.
And he kind of reworks that song for like the rest of his life. Like there's the monster rap at some point in the 80s. There was the Christmas Mash or whatever, which was like the Christmas version of the Monster Mash.
Yeah.
And then he got into some environmental stuff, which was he got very political near the end, where he was talking about George, I think it was Bush Sr. was chopping down forestry or something, and then he got in about climate change, the climate mash or whatever the heck. So he did whatever. It's wild, actually. And then I capped it off with this song, and I had everybody. It was Rob Pruce and Bob Blood. I'm like, guess who's singing? And it was really fun to like. One of the guesses was Ron Hawkins from Lowest to the Low. Another guess was Stephen Page from Bare Naked Ladies. They were close with that one, of course. But it was you. This is you. So what did you think of the chat about One Hit Wonder?
Oh, I loved it, of course, you know, and very flattering, and I appreciate it so much. So, yeah, no, it was really good. And I do notice that because of the subject matter, every Halloween, you know, a few people will post it on Facebook, and that's nice. But it was nice to have that escalate a little bit, you know.
Right. And lest we forget, this is like a true story. Right?
Yeah.
Like you're like this story you tell, and it's great storytelling. It's like, sort of like that Billy Bragg. Billy Bragg tells these great stories in these songs, and you're doing it in this song, and you're talking about a true story, Halloween night in
1992,
Florida?
in October 1992 in Sarasota, Florida. Stepped out of a movie theater with my then girlfriend, Arlene Bishop, the great songwriter.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah, and we had just seen Public Eye with Joe Pesci, and there was Bobby Pickett on the back of a flatbed truck, a bunch of hay bales around in this parking lot, and it was Halloween night, and he was performing the Monster Mash, and I immediately went into sneer mode. I was like, oh, poor fucking guy, you know. And then I thought, wait a second, nobody's going to ask me to play Last Red Hot Fools in, you know, and the Jitters had only broken up the year before, so you know.
If you come to TMLX 14 on December 9th from noon to 3 at Palma's Kitchen, you can do exactly what Bobby Boris Pickett was doing. You can play Last of the Red Hot Fools
with a pickup band and on the back of a flatbed truck, because I'll do it.
See if David Quinton Steinberg wants to come play drums on it. Yeah, not that different, but. Okay, great. And there's a new Toast, I think. Okay, I'm in Montreal for a bit. Then the next week, we'll have another episode of Toast with Bob. And Bob Willette's a radio guy, so we're actually going to kick out radio jams, which we've never done. So songs about radio, that's in a couple of Sundays from now. Let's get to your anti-penultimate jam.
You're so cool. Give me time.
Woo!
More Southern rock.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Archangels, Charlie Sexton and Doyle Bramhall Jr. Saw them live. The Jitters were still together. I went with Matt Greenberg, the band's bass player, our band's bass player, and we marveled at how loud they were and how great the guitars sounded. And they had these like boutique amps, and we were still on the road at that time, so we wanted boutique amps as well. And but like the sound of this record, like even, you know, and it's really old. I'm sure it sounds very old fashioned to anybody younger than you and I. But to me, I don't know, I just love it. I love that sound. I try not to be stuck in songs that I loved when I was a teenager, because I think that's a pretty typical thing. And but it's funny, listening to all this stuff and knowing what a CFNY head you are, I almost feel defensive, and you're not even making me. I want to say...
No, this is all in your head.
Yeah, I loved Aztec Camera, too. You know, I loved Psychedelic Furs, you know.
Well, look, this is your second jam kicking. You'll get a third.
Okay, good.
I
That's
pledge.
good.
And you
Okay.
can kick out your psychedelic first.
Yes, and I can tell you which ones I recorded at the Alma Combo for CFNY broadcasts.
Right.
Aztec Camera, Psychedelic Furs. I have to think of the other
You
ones.
should just kick out your favorite songs from artists you've recorded.
That's true.
Yeah, you should do that. I will point out, because I did not know a lot about Archangels, so I had to go to do a little research, and I did not realize that this is basically after the death of Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yeah.
Members of his band, Double Trouble, are in Archangels.
I actually didn't
It's
know
like a
that.
super group.
Is like Chris, what's his name on drums?
Chris Layden.
Chris Layden.
And Tommy Shannon,
Shannon.
is the bassist you saw.
Okay,
Like, yeah.
So I recorded. I didn't know they were in the band that night, and meanwhile, later, 20 years later, I had played with and had lunch with Tommy Shannon at Stubbs Barbecue House in Austin, Texas, and we had a lovely lunch together. That was nice. And then, but I recorded Tommy Shannon and Chris Layton and Stevie Ray Vaughan at Alma Combo. I was one of the assistant engineers. Oh no, I was the assistant engineer. Doug McClement was the guy who actually mixed it for a Much Music special.
And there's another great episode of Toronto Mic'd with Doug McClement. I think that was actually last December, I want to say, like the week before TMLX, whatever that was, 12 or whatever.
It's funny, I listened to that episode, and at the beginning my heart sank a little bit, because I thought, oh boy, Doug's going to be a little stiff. He would answer you with yes or no questions.
Yeah.
But then he got right into it, as I hoped and expected he would.
I've seen that movie a few times now,
Yeah.
like where the guest is kind of like monosyllabic. How do you say that
Like
word?
Friendly, monosyllabic.
Okay.
But friendly.
But then you gotta kind of loosen them up, and
Yeah.
you play a little bit. You kind of ask them, hey, like, what do you like to eat? What's your favorite breakfast or whatever? Like, at some point, they start to like forget what they're doing, and they just chat you up.
Yeah, and Doug has a million stories, and I know because I work for him, and he would tell me those stories, and they were great. He's a great storyteller.
So let me ask you this: since there's several people you said, Mike, you should talk to, and usually I do, almost always.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel like it's on you now, like if that guest is not a great guest or interesting guest, like if that guest sucks, this is on Blair Packham. Like you're going to carry that. Like you've let me down or something.
As you pointed out when I mentioned my when I said about I like other music too thing a couple of minutes ago.
Defensive and no one's attacking you.
You said, I know, you said this is all in your head, and I'm thinking, as I listen, I think, well, I did recommend this person. They better be good. And so, yeah, it's in my head.
And then when you're listening to Doug McClement and you're like, oh, he's not amazing out of the gates. I've fucked up. I've ruined Toronto Mike because he'll never forgive me.
I don't go that far. I don't think you've got quite a resume without me, but I do think, well...
Yeah, but no Jane Siberry without you.
Well,
and
that may be
I'll
true.
never forget my Jane Siberry
Yeah,
conversation.
but Jane, by the way, has reverted back to using ISA.
She mentioned she was thinking. I didn't know she did it, but
she
was
decided
thinking
to,
about
yeah.
it. Okay,
And so
Isa.
I want to respect that. So ISA, but
Right.
yeah,
You should respect that.
she's something else. But yeah, I do feel a certain responsibility for some reason.
But it almost makes you, is it worth the risk? Like, why should you be responsible if Doug McClement is a bit short with his answers and isn't telling a great story?
Somebody said to me the other day, they said that a friend, before they had met me, a friend said to them, "Oh yeah, you'll like Blair Packham. He's a little intense, but he's And I thought, am I intense? Am I like really?
I don't think you're intense.
Well, but here's the thing. I want to be more intense and I want to take more risks. So if something's risky, like, I recommend a guest that you're not thrilled with, tough shit, like I want to be more risky.
That's the attitude, right?
Yeah.
That's the attitude is you got to stop caring what other people think about you. Like that's sort of the...
Yeah, that's
so
a lifelong project.
Yeah, well, of course, it's a lifelong. But once you're like, I like me, I'm going to be myself, and if you don't like me, that's on you. Like
I am more or less there. I don't feel you will dislike me if I recommend a guest who's a stiff, I'm not worried about that.
Right.
I just think, it would be a better show if that person was
You're
less.
just disappointed that
it's not. I don't really think, oh God, everybody's going to hate me. Mike's going to hate me. I don't think that. You're in. I figure you're in.
I felt a bit like so recently. I had a similar deal where you've brought in people, like for example, David Quinton Steinberg. Like you literally walked him in and you sat with him. So we did something very recently. I'm looking at this album here by Don Stevenson, who is going to be at Massey Hall coming up. He's in Moby Grape.
I don't know Don very well at all. We've met a few times, and he's been complimentary about my music, and I'm happy to know a rock legend, but I don't really know Don that well.
So. Gare Joyce knows Don, and Gare did what you did with David Quinton Steinberg, where he's like he walked him in and he sat him down here, and so Don Stevenson came on Toronto Mike because Gare kind of brokered that deal, and I loved the conversation, and he was great. Don Stevenson was great, but then Gare's like, let's do it again, and then he kind of brokers this other thing, except this time 3 people at 3 different locations meeting remotely, and it was Roy McGregor. He's a accomplished journalist, and it was honestly it was fine. It was great. It was great. But now Gare carries this whole Gare listens back and he feels maybe it's not a top 5% Toronto Mic'd episode or whatever, and he's carrying that,
right?
And I wonder, like that when you bring somebody in, it's like they got to be great, or it's like you've let down this host.
Yeah, it's and you let yourself down, maybe in the audience. Like it's the producer in me. I think I want it to be great.
Of course.
I still think about the records I produced for Arlene Bishop, the aforementioned Arlene Bishop.
You
my
know
ex-wife.
Arlene Bishop?
Yeah, I know her quite well, and if she had something to promote, I would probably twist her arm and get it. But she's not a self-promoter really, and
right.
But I'd probably get her to come in because she would have some funny stories. But I still think about the records I made with her, and I think, oh, I should have done this differently. I should have done that. Like right. She used to call me when we were married. She used to call me King of Regrets. And it's because I would say to her about something that happened years before. Oh, do you think I should have done this differently? And
right.
It's just idle musing, really. You know, like I'm not beating myself up, and I felt quite secure that we loved each other. I didn't feel like she was judging me. And even now, even if I'm second guessing those productions with her, I'm not thinking, oh, she hates me, because I know. Even though we're divorced, I know she loves me, and I know I love her. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Beautiful, and you have a beautiful son together.
We really do. He's a.
Well, that's the thing. So I also have children from a previous marriage.
Mm-hmm.
You are forever like it's not like, oh, we had a thing and then we had to divvy up the CDs and move on our way or whatever, right? Like right. It's like you're forever married to that woman in a sense. Like yes. You might not be sleeping with them and whatever, but you having kids with somebody, that's the big commitment in life. It's not even the marriage or the buying the house. It's once you have a kid with somebody, you're with them for the long haul.
Yeah, I mean, arguably with our son being 22, when he's launched and on his own, I'll be. I already see less of Arlene as it is,
sure.
but we spend holidays together. Like her partner Yod, great musician himself, by the way, Yod Sylvester.
Okay.
And we've gone on trips together. We all went to Ireland together, the 4 of us. Yeah. We went to Disneyland.
Let me give you a gift here before we get to your penultimate jam here.
I love a gift.
So this is a wireless speaker courtesy of Moneris. You're going to love that.
That's so nice. I have one of these, so I'm not going to...
Oh, you don't need another one.
No, I do. I love the one I have.
Your son could get one maybe.
Yes, exactly. I listened to it through it this morning. It really sounds great.
It's a good one, right?
Yeah, it's a good one.
So obviously when you say, son, I got to get, here's your gift. It's from courtesy of Moneris. You will... tell him to subscribe to Yes, We Are Open. That's an award-winning podcast from Moneris, hosted by FOTM Al Grego. Season 5 is dropping now. Al went out east. He went to the Maritimes. He went to Newfoundland. He's collecting these inspiring stories from small business owners, and then he shares them on Yes, We Are Open. And again, I think it might win another award this year. This is a quality podcast, and it'll inspire you, and you can listen to it on there.
And I will tell him, and he probably already does subscribe.
I'm sure if he knows his stuff, he's already subscribed. And then, of course, as he, starts his career and has to consider things like money, he's going to want to learn how to plan, invest, and live smarter. And that's where Raymond James comes in with the Advantaged Investor podcast. Whether you already work with a trusted financial advisor or currently manage your own investment plans, the Advantaged Investor provides the engaging wealth management information you value as you pursue your most important goals. Are you ready for the penultimate jam?
Yes.
You sounded unsure for a moment.
Short answer, yeah. There we go.
Oh, I like how it does that in the headphones. It bounces back.
Doesn't it sound great?
I love it. You gotta wear headphones for all music.
Do you remember this one?
I don't. I only remember the Girlfriend song. I don't remember much from Matthew Sweet.
Okay. The guitar playing. The tones. Oh.
I don't know where I'm gonna live. I don't know if I'll find a place. I'd have to think about it some. That I do not wish to face. I guess I'm counting on his divine intervention. I cannot understand my God.
Sweet Jam from Matthew Sweet.
Yeah.
Don't know why it gets to me.
Yeah. The guitar playing. The tones. Like you say, the like listening on speakers or headphones, but not on your laptop. The hearing the way things pan and stuff.
There's a lot of music I didn't even know that I'll hear on this program, and I have the headphones on, and I don't even realize that panning is going on until I put it on in the headphones, and
Well,
then it's like, whoa.
A lot of people don't because they listen on their laptops or whatever. If you listen to Beatle records with only one ear on, have you ever done that? It's crazy.
No, but I want to ask you about that because
Yeah.
I just talked to Sylvia Tyson.
Yes.
Just that. In fact, she's playing the same event at Massey Hall that Don Stevenson is playing.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw Sylvia at the opening of Hughes Room, by the way, and spoke with her very briefly.
So we were playing some Four Strong Winds, of course. You can't have Sylvia on and not play a little Four Strong Winds. And then in the headphones, Ian Tyson is on the left, like you can hear his voice in the left, and you hear Sylvia Tyson in the right. Like this was their idea, I guess, of stereo at the time or whatever.
Yeah.
Like when
Yeah.
But I actually just wondered your thoughts on that. Like when it comes like having one voice in one side, one on the other. Is that lazy or is that cool or whatever? Because I enjoyed that effect.
I think it's
in the headphones.
I think it's cool. I don't think it's lazy, but I do think it's risky. Like I wouldn't make a record like that now. I would pan the vocals a little bit, maybe, just to spread them out a bit. But I would, But I'm kind of, Bob Wiseman might make a record like that. I'm pretty conservative when it comes to stuff like that. Swinghammer might make a record like that. But I don't know. That said, Beatle records where all the drums are on one side, kind of like this one, by the way. That all the drums are on the left side, I think, and or all the vocals are on one side on a Beatle record. And when you're listening through speakers, you don't really know this.
Yeah, drums are on my right.
On your right, okay, yeah,
Maybe you put the headphones on backwards.
exactly, yeah. But yeah.
But I don't know. So Matthew Sweet, I've never owned a Matthew Sweet album. I just remember the Girlfriend song was everywhere.
Yeah, this is from that album.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the opening song on that album.
Okay. So really?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, with the picture, was it Kim Novak on the cover, I think? It's called
From
Girlfriend.
Rear Window or no?
And like
Rear
the
Window,
actress.
Yeah.
And it's a picture. She looks amazing, and it's a great cover. And I guess everybody thought, is that your girlfriend? And then they realized, no, that's Kim Novak. I think it's Kim Novak.
Oh, I trust you on this one. I'm looking it up now. Okay. Yeah. Girlfriend album. Okay. Let's see here.
It's just a great evocative picture.
Yeah, like the cover of the album. Oh, you know what? It's Tuesday Weld.
Tuesday Weld, Tuesday Weld, Kim Novak. I don't know. I'm just.
Peter Gross has a good Tuesday Weld story.
Does he?
Actually, when we got to talk about Don Shabib because Don Shabib directed a movie that was going to be Peter Gross's big break. The follow-up to Going Down the Road is a movie called Rip Off.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers. Very few people seem to remember it. It didn't do very well. It was a kind of a. Oh, this song comes back too.
Very Beatlesque.
What do you think of these? It was done. It was done and buried.
Yeah.
And here it is again, rising from the dead. What do you think of that?
I kind of love it because it's Beatlesque.
Beatlesque.
Yeah. I have never done it myself. Now I think about it, I think
radio would hate that, right? Like radio you can't do that for radio.
But that was the great thing. The Beatles could because they were the fucking Beatles.
Right?
They could do that, and the radio would be like, okay,
right,
fine.
So people thought Tuesday Weld, and that was a photo from the late 50s. They thought maybe that was Matthew Sweet's girlfriend.
Yes.
The big song on the album. The album's called Girlfriend.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Amazing. Look at you. Okay, so we only have one to go.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just reading now a little bit about how they talk about his pop sense of noisy, passionate guitar work, recalling the Beatles' Revolver, early Neil Young, and Television.
All of the above. I agree with all of that. Yeah.
It was credited to Blair Packham. He said it on Toronto Mike.
Yeah, no wonder I agree with it.
What are you up to these days? Give us a 411 on what's going on in Blair Packham's life.
I visited a friend who was mastering a record with Noah Mintz at the Lacquer Channel.
There's no one else to get mastered by
exactly. Noah Mintz.
And he's the guy, we talked about the 1993 New Music Search earlier.
Head, yeah.
He's in Head.
Yep. So I visited my friend Becky Prokova. I always want to say Provoca. She's the Provoca, who was a student of mine years and years ago, like 10 years ago at Seneca, and she's made a record, and it's really, really great.
Wow.
And she was getting it mastered, and I thought, well, here's a good chance to go visit Noah. So I went and hung out for an hour or two, and I said to Noah, I would love to have my record that is in the can saved for one song. Mastered by you, but I can't really afford it, and I made this record super cheaply. I made it all myself except for paying a drummer basically and a bass player here and there. And he said, no, I'll do it. And we worked out a deal, where he'll get paid, but it'll be
in lasagna from Palma Pasta.
Basically, yeah. I've got to go over right now with this lasagna before it thaws.
And you have a new speaker for him, too.
Yeah. But anyway, so I'm so thrilled that he'll be mastering it that it has brought my project back into focus. So I'm releasing a record. It's called The Impossible Dream. And it's a bunch of acoustic songs with a band, but acoustic songs by me, and I'm excited about it.
Very exciting. Now I need to recommend a fairly recent episode of Toronto Mike, because we talked about these Bob Wiseman episodes, and maybe he doesn't love doing deep dives and interviews. Well, there's an artist I love who definitely hates being interviewed and talking about his art and all the crap that goes on in this basement, and that's Hayden Desser.
Right.
Hayden did come over for 90 minutes, and it's amazing. I highly recommend Hayden's Toronto Mike debut. We've become buds, actually, through a different channel. And Hayden, of course, had a high school band in Thornlea Collegiate up in Thornhill. His high school band was him and Noah Mintz.
Right. Wasn't Gian Gameshi also in that band?
He was at the school. No, not in the band. I think he had his own thing going on. And then if you listen to Noah Mintz on Toronto Mike, he just goes off on Gian Gameshi. The pretentious nature of Gian Gameshi.
Yeah.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
So there you go. It's kind of all coming.
It is. Thornlea, yeah.
Oh, and one last thing. That 1993 New Music Search CD has an entry from Hayden called Take. And forever, in fact, Lawrence Nichols from Low So Low, I kind of dropped this fun fact on him the other day, and his mind was actually blowing, like I was scraping the brains off the walls down here. It was unbelievable. But Hayden does not sing on the song Take. He wrote it and he plays guitar. Noah Mintz does vocals on Take because Hayden didn't think he had a good voice, and his buddy Noah did it.
Wow.
So Noah's actually has two entries in the 1993 New Music Search.
I want to channel Issa Sibiri and say, I don't think that's a fun fact, Mike. Even though I actually do.
Get off my program. You just want to fuck with me.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to channel Issa. That's all.
I know you have better taste than that. Okay, let's find out, because we're going to kick out. By the way, I'm going to let people know you submitted 11 songs, and I said, this is bullshit, Blair. You're losing a song.
You really got mad.
Well, because 11 songs, you knew I was going to sprinkle stuff. Like, this is going to be a 2-hour episode already.
Yeah.
I said, which one do you want to lose? And you killed the Neil Young song, so I'm going to let people know they're not hearing any Neil Young, but you were going to kick out Tonight's the Night, so maybe hold on to that for the next jam.
Yes, I will.
Or something like that.
I will.
But here's your final jam.
Okay.
I used to travel in the shadows and I never found the nerve to try and walk up to you. But now I am a man and I know that there's no time to waste, there's too much to lose. Girl, you say anything at all and you know that you can call and I'll be right there for you. First love, heartbreak, tough love, big mistake, what else can you do? I'll say everything you want to hear. I'll see everything through. I'll do anything I have to do just to win the love of a girl like you. A girl like you. People talking, people stare, tell them I don't really care.
You know, the Smithereens. I didn't particular. The song, the list was not in any particular order. And this Smithereen song, which I love, A Girl Like You, could have been replaced by I'm an Adult Now by Pursuit of Happiness, or Hard to Laugh, or anything from Love Junk from their album.
Are you going to go see the Trans-Canada Highway?
Oh, yeah.
I'll be there too.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So we can hang out?
Yeah, yes. Well, it could be replaced by any Odd song, any Sloan song. You know, I'm a big fan of, if I come on again, if you ever have me on again, I would love to do like all Canadian songs that I love.
Soul.
Canadian jams that I love. Yeah.
So Stephen Brunt did that and it was amazing. You're going to do that too.
I bet that there might even be some overlap. Who knows? But yeah. So it's not like this is one of my favorite songs in the world. I guess it is one of my favorite songs in the world.
Well,
but
if it's not, you're doing it wrong.
Well, yeah, the list is probably 100.
You're supposed to love these songs.
Well, I do. I love these songs. I guess what I mean is there are a lot of songs that could have substituted for this one, but I happen to like that riff a lot.
Okay, you're being a little defensive there too, I noticed. It's like somebody in your head telling you, of all the Smithereen songs, you chose A Girl Like You.
No, it's not that. It's that, oh my God, I love Hard to Laugh more by Pursuit. I love Cigarette Dangles by Pursuit of Happiness more. There are, and this reminds me of that because it's from the same era, and the guitar tone is similar. So I'm thinking I could have picked someone who's cool, by odds,
No wonder you're at the Trans-Canada Highwaymen. You love all these.
I do. That's
artists.
a hell of a band,
Yeah.
And
seen your buddy Stephen Page.
Yeah, exactly. And my buddy Craig Northey, who's all over the One Hit Wonder song, by the way.
That's a fun fact.
That's the Odds backing. I don't know if that is a fun fact, Mike.
Stop it, Issa.
On One Hit Wonder, that's Odds backing me up.
On this show, we say you're Issa-ing that fact. Stop Issa-ing my fun facts here.
I'm going to Issa into it.
Now, you mentioned Sloan, because we talked about Trans-Canada Highwaymen, so I'm here to tell you, I had this idea, there's a very popular American podcast called 60 Songs That Explains the 90s. And this journalist named Rob Harvilla does this, and it's pretty popular, but it's very American. Like, I listen to it, and it's like, well, that's very American. Like, of course, because he is American. He talks from his own I think he's from Ohio or something like that. But I always think of, like, the Canadian slant on this, or the Canadian perspective on this, or, and I always think that, oh, maybe I should do something like that. But, that's like a full-time job for him. He works for The Ringer, and there's a whole thing. I don't have time unless big sponsors step up and say, we want you to do this. But I do kind of make time to do a similar thing, like these 90s CanCon songs I want to spotlight, like in my own way. And I chose for the first one, which was dropped a few months ago, I chose the song Underwhelmed by Sloan.
What a great song.
Which we'll hear, I suppose, at that concert. Because that's
I would think so, yeah. And and you turned slightly, and I remembered you wearing your Tragically Hip shirt. I could have replaced that Smithereens song with Poets, or with with Little Bones. You know, there are songs that I also love. Anyway, I'm not.
And
feeling,
Rob Baker's a big fan of yours.
Well,
I heard that through the grapevine.
Yeah. Craig Northey from Odds gave him the album that has Monster. I keep saying Monster Mash.
Monster Mash.
That
You
has
did that too?
yeah, that has One Hit Wonder on it, and Rob really liked it, and it was very complimentary.
He's got good taste. So the reason I brought up the Underwhelmed episode was not so much to say, hey, I did this cool thing about Underwhelmed months ago,
Yeah.
but it's because tomorrow, which is Thursday, November 16th, 2023. I almost said
1923.
1923, when podcasts were at their peak, I suppose. But I am dropping the second in that series. It
Yeah.
only took me a few months.
Right.
And I am doing a episode about Rusty's Wake Me. So in the on the heels of the deep dive into Underwhelmed, there will be a Rusty Wake Me deep dive. And I think it'll blow some minds. And it will include, in a weird roundabout way, it will include some Neil Young. So that's a little teaser there, because we didn't play Neil Young today, but we will next time. Were you at his the private party of the Canada Goose
No.
guy at the Rivoli?
Like everyone else, I heard about it after.
I almost had an exclusive because I was there at the outside the venue at Rivoli, because I was leaving the Horseshoe Tavern that night because I saw Art Bergman there that night. Oh, the Art Bergman episode's good.
Oh, I bet.
You should listen to that.
There's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he sat in the basement, and it was wild. So there was tears. I think he wanted to punch me at some point, and then he finally just gave up and said, "This is the greatest interview I've ever done," and I believe him.
I believe him too.
Blair, this is actually the greatest interview I've ever done.
Yeah.
Is you right now. This was great. Thanks, man.
Thank you. So much fun.
And that brings us to the end of our 1,366th show. You can follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Toronto Mike. Blair is at Blair Packham. You're also on Instagram, I noticed.
Yes, BlairPackham.com, but also on Instagram and X.
Sounds like a strip club or something. Okay. Much love to all those who made this possible. That's Great Lakes Brewery. You're taking those fresh cans of Great Lakes home with you. Palma Pasta, I've got the lasagna in the freezer. Raymond James Canada, you got the speaker for your boy. No, that's not from Raymond James. I'm giving credit to the wrong great sponsor.
Yeah.
Daenerys is giving you the speaker.
That's right.
Raymond James, we got to give something away. Recycle My Electronics. Everybody should listen to Cliff Hacking. He was over just a couple of weeks ago. It was a great episode of Toronto Mike, all about recyclemyelectronics.ca. And of course, Ridley Funeral Home. See you all. Well, you'll listen to my Rusty's Wake Me retrospective. That's dropping tomorrow. See you all then.
You know that's true because